Good morning, everybody. Matt Modi here to give you my favorite NBA player prop picks today. The Splash Zone is back in your life. We're talking Monday, December 16th, the Monday NBA betting slate. I'm going to have 5 NBA player props for you guys to lock in, including one ladder climb as well. Admittedly, to do a recap, it's been a couple days since I've had a NBA video. It's been pretty rough. The last 2 days specifically have been brutal. That includes Friday, which was brutal. That includes Saturday, which was brutal. And then I ended up taking the day off yesterday. Just needed a mental reset for the NBA so I could get my butt kicked in the NFL. Just a tough weekend. It happens. We move on. On the entire season, we are down now on the year down over 3 units, which is brutal because we did get to the point where we were green on the year. Now we have lost that. That's just the nature of how this NBA season has gone. It's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back, what it feels like pretty much for the entire season. Hopefully, we can get ourselves on an extended hot streak, and hopefully that starts tonight. So as I mentioned, I'm going to have 5 plays for you guys, and let's get right into it. Bulls versus Raptors. Play number 1. Jakob Poeltl over 16.5 points, -110 odds at ESPN Bet. Now, I'll admit I was close to laddering this one up to 20 plus points, which you can get for over plus 200 odds at Bet365. Just decided to play it a little bit close. Just need to see one go through the hoop before we start doing that stuff. But this matchup for Jakob Poeltl is about as good as you can possibly imagine going up against the Chicago Bulls. I mean, you look at like how Jakob Poeltl scores in terms of his play types. You look at the area of the floor in which he scores the majority of his points. You look at the matchup. You look at everything. It's perfect for Jakob Poeltl. He plays the Bulls, who in general, the Bulls are a defense that you do want to target. They have a terrible defense, and they play at a very fast pace. It's just a beautiful matchup, generally, for stat accumulation. Over the last 10 games, the Bulls' defense has admittedly gotten somewhat better. They only have the 9th worst defense over the last 10 games. They're the 5th worst on the entire season, but more importantly, they play at an incredibly fast pace. They play at the 2nd fastest pace in the entire NBA over the last 10 games. Bad defense plus fast pace equals beautiful stat accumulation. And on top of that, they really, really struggle to guard the center position. Really, no matter where you look, no matter what source you look at, because I like to look at different sources for stuff like this for whatever reason. Different sources have different info. All sources you could possibly look at paint the Bulls as a defense that gives up a ton of points. According to props.cash and Fantasy Pros, they give up the 2nd most points per game to centers. According to hashtag NBA, the 3rd most points per game to centers. And to go even deeper than that, and I really, really like looking at this specifically per Props Madness, which is a website that I love that I've been using a ton. 7 of 8 players with a similar scoring profile to Jakob Poeltl have hit their point prop over against the Bulls. That I think is really important because it doesn't just look at the center position, but it looks at like, okay, how do these centers score? Victor Wembanyama is listed as a center. His scoring profile is much different than Jakob Poeltl. So it's not always perfect to just look at the position, but look at their play type as well. And as I mentioned, 7 of 8 players similar to Jakob Poeltl's scoring profile have hit their point prop over against the Bulls by an average of 4.75 points per game, which is crazy. So, okay, we know that. They give up a ton of points to centers. The next question that I always ask is why? Where do they give them up? So let's get into it. For starters, over the last 10 games and on the entire season, the Bulls have allowed the most made field goals in the restricted area. So even though their defense has gotten better, like again, 5th worst on the season, 9th worst over the last 10 games, they still give up the most made field goals in the restricted area. That's where Jakob Poeltl scores the majority of his points, just from the area of the floor. And then we start looking at play types, like where do they give them up in terms of the play types that teams run against them. All the play types that centers score, the Bulls are bad at. The Bulls give up literally the most points per game to the pick and roll roll man, literally number 1. That's important because that's where the majority of his points come from a play type perspective, is as the roll man. 7th most points per game via putbacks, 6th most points per game via post-ups. That's a lot of how centers score. Post-ups, putbacks, and rolling to the basket. The one area where we don't have data is off of cuts, which makes up the 2nd most of Poeltl's points. NBA.com doesn't give us data how defenses guard cuts, but we can presume that they're bad at it knowing what we know. So incredibly juicy matchup for Jakob Poeltl. I absolutely love this one. That's play number 1. Play number 2 is also our ladder play as well. It's a James Harden assist ladder. I'm taking him over 8.5 assists, -105 odds at DraftKings, full unit mix slam there. And then I'm also taking, technically it's a double-double. So technically the second bet is James Harden double-double, which you can get at plus 170 odds at Bet365 for a half unit. Now the double-double is really just backing him to get to 10 assists. If he happens to get there with rebounds, that would be great. And if he doesn't score 10 points, so be it. That would be terrible. But really what we're doing here is betting on him to get to both 9 and 10 assists, with 10 being the latter. Great matchup against the Utah Jazz. Similar to the Bulls, no matter what source you look at, no matter how you slice it, just how the Bulls can't guard centers, the Jazz allow a ton of assists to point guards. According to both Props.Cash and Fantasy Pros, they give up the second most assists per game in the NBA. And then you want to look at the past month, so not even the entire season, but the past month, the fourth most assists per game to point guards over the last month per #NBA. And just going through the game log, 7 of the last 10 point guards against the Jazz have hit their assist prop over, and a lot of them have crushed their over as well. It's not just like going over by 1 assist, it's annihilating their over. Tyus Jones just had 11 assists. His over-under was 7.5. De'Aaron Fox, game before that, had 9 assists. His over-under was 5.5. And Malik Monk also went over his assist prop in that same game. Bodes well for Harden. Now, admittedly, this is a fade of recent results type of situation. The assists, the potential assists have all been down for James Harden recently. He's only hit 9 or more assists in 4 of his last 10 games, and his potential assists are down as well. So I'm not going to pretend anything other than that is the case. Really what we're doing here is we're targeting the matchup that we've seen James Harden have success against this season. The last time these two teams played this year, Harden had 11 assists on 22 potential assists. That's something that I like to happen once again tonight, so I'm hitting it. 1 unit on 9, half unit on 10. That's play number 2. Play number 3, we're actually sticking in the same game, Jazz versus Clippers, and it's Norman Powell, 4+ made 3-pointers, plus 115 odds at FanDuel. Now, I'll admit, 3-point props have not gone well for me this year. I mean, a lot has gone poorly for me this year. One of the things that has gone poorly is 3-point props. So hopefully today, I got one more after this one. Hopefully today we go 2-0 on these and everything's looking good. So Jazz are a juicy matchup for point guard assist props. They're also a juicy matchup for 3-point props as well. This one for Norman Powell is also a much easier sell than James Harden, because Harden, we had to fade recent results. We don't have to do that with Norman Powell. He's been phenomenal recently. He's hit at least 4 3-pointers in 11 of 19 games this year. He's done it in 5 of his last 10. But we are kind of fading immediate recent results. He's missed it in 2 straight, but he had cashed it in 4 straight prior to that. That's just the nature of how 3-point props go. He hit in 4 straight. Now he missed in 2 straight. Now I'm betting that he's going to go back to hitting his 3-point prop. As I mentioned, it's a great matchup for him against the Utah Jazz. The Jazz, they're really bad defense overall. One of the areas in which they are bad, very bad, is guarding the 3-point line. They allow the 3rd most made 3-pointers in the entire NBA. But over the last 10 games specifically, they have allowed the most made above the break 3-pointers in the NBA. And the third most catch and shoot 3-pointers. And if you look at the last 10 games, they've allowed the 2nd most catch and shoot 3-point attempts in the NBA. So the 3rd most above the break, 2nd most catch and shoot. Norman Powell takes the most catch and shoot 3-pointers on the Clippers on the year, and he takes the 2nd most above the break 3-pointers on the Clippers. Only James Harden takes more above the break 3-pointers, but those are, a lot of them are pull-ups, where Norman Powell is much more in the catch and shoot variety. The last time these two teams played, Powell put up 11 3-pointers, and he made 4 of them. 4 of 11 will take that exact output tonight. He should continue to chuck. He's had a really good year this year, so I like backing him. That's play number 3. Play number 4, we're heading to the Nuggets versus Kings game, and I'm taking Michael Porter Jr., 3+ made 3-pointers, plus 115 odds at FanDuel. So I mentioned I'm going to have 2 3-point props. This is the next one. Another very, very juicy matchup against the Kings for Michael Porter Jr. The Kings are similar to the Jazz in that they struggle to guard the 3-point line. And this one, similar to Harden, this is like an aggressive Pepto level fade recent results. And Michael Porter Jr. had a stretch at the beginning of the year where he had made 3 or more in 6 straight games, and he had done it in 7 of 8. Since then, he's only done it in 3 of 12 games. So it's been a much more prolonged slump for Michael Porter Jr. It's honestly very similar to James Harden, who started off the year on fire and has been cold since, and we're kind of betting on that to go back up in a juicy matchup. Overall, Michael Porter Jr. has hit this in 11 of 23 games on the season, but only 3 of his last 10. And as I mentioned, it's actually 3 of his last 12. So perfect time to buy back in on a 3-point prop in a great matchup against the Kings. The Kings on the entire season, they've allowed the third most made above the break 3-pointers. But over the last 10 games, that's actually the most. They've allowed the most made above the break 3-pointers against them in the entire NBA. Unsurprisingly, Michael Porter Jr., the majority of his points come from the above the break 3-pointer. And to go even deeper than that, also similar to the Jazz, the Kings also allow a lot of catch and shoot 3-pointers. They've allowed the third highest frequency of shots against them come from the catch and shoot 3-pointer. So I love this one. Michael Porter Jr., he leads the Nuggets in catch and shoot 3-pointers. I love this one. He's going to make 3 for us tonight, no doubt about it. And now for our last pick of the video, 5th and final pick, we're going in the Sixers versus Hornets game. Guerschon Yabusele, 6+ rebounds, plus 140 odds at FanDuel. As always, we save our juiciest play in terms of odds for last. And honestly, I just think this is an absolutely insane price on Yabo to get us at least 6 rebounds. This is a number that he has hit in 8 of his last 10 games. He's played without Joel Embiid, averaging over 7 rebounds per game on over 15 rebound chances per game. And even if you look at games specifically with Andre Drummond and without Joel Embiid, because Drummond has missed a couple games here, Yabo has still hit this number in 5 of his last 7. And in one of the games he missed, he had exactly 5, would have given us the hook there. But even before Drummond got hurt, Yabo started eating into Drummond's minutes. Honestly, Drummond started playing horribly. Yabo was playing actually really well. So if you just kind of look at the game logs, this is with Andre Drummond, without Joel Embiid. Yabo had only played, and I'm calling him Yabo, that's his Guerschon Yabusele, it's a fun nickname. He had only played 25 minutes twice in the first 8 games of the season. Again, that's with Drummond without Embiid. Since then, he has now done it in 6 straight. One of them technically is like 24.7. I'm rounding up to 25 minutes. If we want to say 5 of 6 games, that's fine. Regardless, definitely playing more minutes, and more minutes obviously just leads to more rebound chances and all that stuff. And if we just look at the data and we look at games in which he's played at least 25 minutes, he averages 7.5 rebounds per game on 15.6 rebound chances per game. Again, that's with him playing at least 25 minutes. I actually think he's going to get up to 30+ minutes tonight. He's been playing really well. Drummond's been struggling a lot recently, so it's not a surprise to see Yabo eat into Drummond's minutes. And Yabo's also played the Hornets twice this season, and in both of those games, he went over 5.5 rebounds. He got to 6+. He had 8 rebounds and 12 rebounds in those 2 games, and more importantly, 17 and 20 rebound chances. I'm very confident he's going to get us to at least 6 boards tonight. And that's all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and have a good one.